Bienvenidos a todos, Boirun. I'm very happy to welcome you to our program tonight. My name is Devin Nar, and I'm the Isaac Al-Hadef Chair in Sephardic Studies and Associate Professor of History and Jewish Studies at the University of Washington. I'd like to... All right, there we go. That's right. The University of Washington acknowledges the Coast Salish peoples of this land, the land which touches the shared waters of all tribes and bands within the Duwamish, Puyallup, Suquamish, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot nations. This event tonight is presented together between the Israel Studies program and the Sephardic Studies program of the Strom Center for Jewish Studies here at the University of Washington, and is co-sponsored by the University of Washington Near and Middle East Studies Ph.D. program, by Arts UW, which is part of the College of Arts and Sciences, and by the Ethnology program at the University of Washington. It is also sponsored by the Hazani Zakazuz Fund for Community Engagement in honor of our friend Hazani Zakazuz, who is with us here today. With additional support provided by Congregation Ezra Besarot, the Seattle Sephardic Brotherhood, and the Sephardic Bikur Halim congregation, as well as Jack and Kara Azos, Howard Bihar, Harley and Leela Franco, Jeff and Jamie Merriman Cohen, Jack Shalom, and Marlene Suriano Vinegar, many of whom are with us today, and we are very grateful for their support and generosity. Today's talk would not be possible without a group of professionals at the Strom Center who work every day to bring quality, thought-provoking academic programming to our audiences. These professionals include Mika Ahuvia, our new as well as our new associate director, Aliyah Vineker, Kara Schoonmaker, Grace Elizabeth D., Jenny McCullum, Kohana Isaka, and Liv Fowler. And I'd also like to acknowledge my colleague, Naomi Sokolov, who is the chair of the Israel Studies program and has been a great collaborator and partner for this series of programs. Tonight's lecture will be about an hour, and after that, we'll have time for Q&A. Okay, that's the one I'm looking for. It is an Israeli keyboard here. You got to go left to go forwards. I wasn't anticipating that. And actually, everything is in Rashi script here, so it's even more complicated. After the presentation and performance, we'll have opportunities for questions and answers, and we invite you to submit your questions via Slido at slido.com/Seroussi-Sonic. I'd like to now introduce our guest, our guest scholar, as well as our guest performers. First, I'd like to introduce Professor Edwin Seroussi. All right, that's good. I first came across Professor Edwin Seroussi's scholarship on Sephardic music literally half my life ago, when I was just a graduate student at Stanford, and I read his work initially about the liturgical music from the Turkish community in the Turkish synagogue in Vienna. And yes, there was an Ottoman Jewish Turkish synagogue in Vienna that was unfortunately destroyed during Kristallnacht. But ever since that time, 20 years ago, I've been reading Professor Seroussi's scholarship on Ladino music, on Sephardic liturgical music, and on other musical traditions, and I'm constantly learning every time. I especially remember a conference we were able to participate together in Jerusalem some years ago about the history and culture of Salonika, and that was very memorable, our first opportunity to meet, and I'm very pleased to welcome him back some years later. After reading so much of his work, I only wish I could sing some of those songs or play the relevant instruments that he has so meticulously and dynamically described, analyzed, and documented. The good news is that we will hear some of that music and that I won't be the one singing it or playing it. Professor Edwin Seroussi is the Emanuel Alexander Professor of Musicology and Director of the Jewish Music Research Center at Hebrew University in Jerusalem. Originally from Montevideo, Uruguay, he immigrated to Israel in 1971, where he took undergraduate and graduate degrees in musicology at Hebrew University and continued with his Ph.D. from UCLA in 1987. He taught at Bar Ilan University and Tel Aviv University and was a visiting professor at universities in Europe, North and South America, at many different institutions. He's published on North African and Eastern Mediterranean Jewish music, on Judeo-Islamic relations in music, and on Israeli popular music. I was sharing with some of the participants earlier that he really is the most important scholar of Jewish music working today anywhere in the world. And that has been recognized by the fact that he won the Israel Prize some years ago, which is essentially like the Israeli Nobel Prize. So it's a really great privilege and honor to have him with us, and this is in many ways a return for him to Seattle because some of his earlier work dealt with the Hebrew Sephardic liturgical songs from the Ottoman Empire, of which he came all the way here to Seattle to document and learn from the last master, Reverend Ben Arroyo, who was here in Seattle many years ago. We're also very fortunate that not only do we have Edwin Seroussi with us to share his scholarship, but he will be joined tonight by two performers. Ka Guo, who is a Ph.D. candidate in music education with a cognate in ethnomusicology at the University of Washington. She is also an adjunct professor at South Seattle College. She was born in Wuhan, China, and studied applied mathematics at UCLA before obtaining her Master of Science from Stanford and Master of Music from San Jose State University. Her dissertation here at the University of Washington and her research more generally focus on music education connected to the musical traditions of the Sephardic Jewish diaspora, which has taken her to undertake field work all across the world, in Israel, in Turkey, in the Iberian Peninsula, and right here in Seattle. As a vocalist and multi-instrumentalist in various musical styles, she has performed with Paco Diaz, Chazan Isaac Azuz, Trio Guadalevin, and other renowned musicians in Spain, France, and the United States. We are also very fortunate that she will be accompanied by, remind me of your name again? Reinaldo Ruiz. Sorry about that. Reinaldo Ruiz, who is a Bolivian musician who, as he told me earlier, loves all styles of music. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Professor Seroussi, who will speak about Sonic Ruins of Modernity, Judeo-Spanish Folksongs Today, and Ka and Reinaldo, who I believe will begin with a song for us. Thank you.
We're going to perform A la Una Yo Nací. It is a song that's very well known in the Sephardic community, and we had heard, maybe you have, 3 versions played on speakers when we walked in. So this is a version of mine. A la una yo nací, a las 2 me engrandecí, a las 3 tomé amante, a las 4 me casé. Me casé con un amor, alma, vida y corazón, alma, vida y corazón. Dime, niña, ¿dónde vienes? Que te quiero conocer. Dime si tienes amante que yo quiero defender. En mi huerta crecen viñas, en la mar crecen corales. En mi corazón amores, en tu boca falsedades. A la una yo nací, a las dos me engrandecí, a las tres mi amante, a las cuatro me casé con un amor, alma, vida y corazón, alma, vida y corazón. A la una nació, a las dos me bautizaron. Indome para la guerra, 2 pesos al aire di, uno para mi madre y el otro para ti. Lo moreno lo hizo el Dios, lo blanco lo hizo el platero. Viva la gente morena, que por ellos yo me muero. A la una yo nací, a las dos me engrandecí, a las tres mi amante, a las cuatro me casé con un amor, alma, vida y corazón, alma, vida y corazón.
We are already on the ethnographic field. Thank you very much, Kev and Nando, for your performance. Thank you, Professor Nar, for this such a kind introduction. And once again, thank you for all those who are behind the magnificent organization of this event. I asked Kev to open with this song, A la una yo nací, that we scholars, and only we, call that las horas de la vida, the hours of the day. And the reason is that that song was the trigger about 30 years ago of one of my first big public lectures, a keynote address in a conference about Sephardic songs. What led me to talk about that song was that another colleague of mine, very interesting man, Dr. Joel Bressler from Boston, an avid, the most avid collector of Sephardic songs, avid to a point that he will cross the oceans to get an old record that nobody has for his collection, and also a computer science person, produced a database. At the time, 30 years ago, nobody knew what a database really is. but he had statistics about songs, Sephardic songs performed. And this song, A la Una Nací Yo, almost 30 years ago, then had 120 different recorded performances by artists from 5 different continents. And you just heard a magnificent Chinese singer singing Sephardic songs. And I asked myself, how can it be? I mean, there are so few Sephardic Jews. There are so few Ladino speakers. How is possible that these songs are so universally beloved and widespread? That's what we scholars call a research question, a question that demands some answers. And it took me a good 25 years to start figuring out what's going on here. I cannot tell you the whole story today, so I will only tell you the story of one song. And the title of the presentation today is the title of my book that appeared first in Madrid in Spanish. I insisted that the first edition will be in Spanish for the Spanish public. And it's called Sonic Ruins of Modernity. People ask me, how did you came up with such an idea? So to put it very succinctly, each Sephardic song that is performed today is for me like a sort of archaeological site in which all the audiences come for a short visit of a culture that is not active anymore. No matter how much you control technology, it always comes back to you. So I take every Sephardic song as a site of convergence, not only of the audiences who come to experience the song, the same like when you go to a museum or to an archaeological site, but also about the network that make possible that ruin to come into being. And the network includes so many people that when I was doing research, it was like a theater play where in every act, some of the actors of a previous act came into the scene. Whether these are collectors, whether these are musicologists, whether these are producers, whether these are radio station editors of programs of folk music, record labels, recording engineers, a whole world. And this network, this human network, in a way generated the energy that makes possible the creation of these songs as a site of memory, as I also put it in my book. So today, since we don't have time, we're going to talk only about one song. And after I finish, Kay is going to perform the same song in her version, I insisted. And the other 2 songs she will perform are part of my book too. So she will sing my book. So our song, it's called Abridme Galanica in Spanish. I'm sure that any of you here in the audience who loves songs in Ladino knows this song very well. I translated that as open your door, my fair lady. And we're going to hear our first version of the song. This is very important for me, also very personal for me. This is a version collected by the great Sephardic composer, musician, Alberto Hemsi, who was of Turkish origin, eventually to become the musical director of the great synagogue in Alexandria. Eventually, after 1956, for obvious reasons, he left Alexandria for Paris, where he died. And I was fortunate enough, I was always fortunate enough in my career. I never initiated anything. Everything came to me that the daughter of Hemsi came one day in Jerusalem in the corridors of the university asking if someone is interested on the legacy of her father. And that's how I got his entire collection in manuscript that was never published, and I published it. So Hemsi collected Sephardic songs, one of the pioneers in this enterprise, throughout the Eastern Mediterranean. Every summer when he had a vacation, he went to the island of Rhodes, he went to Salonika, to Istanbul, asked who are the people who know the songs the best, and wrote them down. Regretfully, he didn't have a recording machine. So we don't have recordings, just the text and the music notation, because he was a trained musician, trained at the Verdi Conservatory in Milano as a very young man. Imagine a Turkish Sephardic musician comes to the conservatory in Milano. He learned music theory, so he could write very, very well in musical notation. And eventually, 60 of the songs he collected, he arranged them for voice and piano. And he called them Coplas Sefaradíes. They appeared in 10 volumes. And today we have 3 complete recordings of the 60 songs. Just check it online and you will find. So this is the version of that Hemsi produced. Oh. I'm sorry, I have to cut the music in the middle. I really apologize, both to Mr. Hemsi and to you. We just don't have time to listen to the entire song. However, you can see the aesthetic approach of Hemsi writing in the 1930s in a very sophisticated style of French music of that time, the piano accompaniment. The Sephardic song becomes all of a sudden like a European lied, like a song by Schubert or Schumann. You know, it's harmonized with this very avant-garde, in a way, harmonic arrangement. It's extremely interesting. But beyond that, the text is super traditional. And let's look at the text. Most of you here know Spanish, but for all those who do not know Spanish, I will translate that later on. But basically, we have here a song that is called in Spanish literature a canción seriada, a serial song. So you have a pattern, and the pattern repeats all the time with each stanza. Open the door. We don't know exactly who is talking to whom at the very beginning. Okay? We have to guess. Que ya va a amanecer, that is going to, the sun is going to come up to, abrir ya vos abro, mi lindo amor, I will open for you, my beloved. I cannot sleep at night thinking about you. And then the series starts. He starts to tell, obviously it's a he that is waiting somewhere downstairs. He's like Romeo and Julia, you know, he's downstairs, she's up there. He's begging her to open the door or sometimes the window, and excuses started to appear. My father is studying Torah. You say, okay, turn off his light, sometimes turn off his candle, he's going to sleep. My mother está cosiendo, she's sewing. She will hear us, take the needle from her, she will stop, and so on and so forth. This is why my colleagues, the Spanish researchers, call this song Todos son inconvenientes. Everything is an inconvenience. Now, how does a song like this come into being? Here a little bit of geography and history to show the amazing spread of the Sephardic cultural memory, including the Sephardic lyrical memory, throughout so many routes, so many places. So when I was doing my research, not only I thought about the network of people, but also the places where these people circulate. For example, I came up with the centrality of Paris in the making of Sephardic culture as an encounter of so many displaced people from so many places that find themselves in Paris at a certain moment, and they create a certain, I should say, weight that generates some of these songs, and then they deploy that again to a global audience. It's very interesting, the relationship between human networks and geography and history. So, who are some of these agents? I won't talk about most of them because we don't have time, but some of them are very interesting, particularly those who are Spanish and who are not Jewish, but become Sephardophiles at the beginning of the 20th century, in a way trying to redo Spanish history by returning the Sephardic memory, the Jewish memory, to modern Spain. And this man, Don Ramon Menéndez Pidal, the closest I can imagine to to a figure that he signifies the country and the country signifies him. Among his tremendous output, and you see that he lived a very long life, as you can see, he dedicated efforts to collect Sephardic songs, whether these are ballads, romances, or songs from other types, but mostly romances, and integrate them into the narrative of the general history of Spanish literature. That is to say, the Sephardic memory becomes an integral part of the modern making of Spanishness in the 20th century. It's not someone who was exposed, it's someone who has to be returned to the book. So what he did, he sent this gentleman to the east because he couldn't do that himself. A great Spanish musician, Manuel Manrique de Lara y Berry, he goes to the Middle East, to Jerusalem, for example. A few pictures to show how Manrique de Lara experienced Jerusalem, how Jerusalem looked at the time. The train was new, he probably arrived by train, which in the Ottoman Empire was one of the main ways of transportation. This is the Sephardic Jews that he met in Jerusalem, the way they look at the time. And here we have a version, one of the many versions that Manuel Manrique de Lara wrote down from Sephardic Jews and sent back to Madrid to the archive of Menéndez Pidal. So this is a version from Sarajevo, one of the many of this song that are in the archive. The fact that there are many, that means that the song was extremely popular already at the very beginning of the 20th century. And look, he wrote it down, one of them from Jerusalem, in 1911, from Giveret, from lady, or from Signora Kira Mercada de Paredes, 84 years old. So this lady was born in 1827 when she was recorded. That's how far the text that you have here goes back. So listen to, when you look at the text, the red words, without going into details, are words that are different from the version that I play for you by Hemsey. So these changes in the text are expected from a folk song where the human memory combines with the inventiveness of performers who change the words here and there. So we have the song, it's not one song. As I said, it's a space of performance. And every version is authentic. Sometimes people say, what is, okay, you told me to, what is the authentic or the true version of the song? There is no true version of any song. All the songs, all the versions are true, and all of them are traditional, and they are acceptable, except that they differ from each other. So modern Spaniards reconnecting with the Jews. Another important figure that contribute also to our knowledge about Sephardic Jews at the beginning of the 20th century, El Senador Ángel Pulido y Fernández, who this man, believe it or not, for those who do not know, proposed simply to return Spanish citizenship to the Sephardic Jews 120 years ago, before the 21st century when that became a reality. At that time, he was rejected by the Senate. His book, very important, Españoles sin patria y la raza sefaradí, the Spanish people without a homeland and the Sephardic race. Today, we wouldn't use this word in the title of a book, but it tells something about his worldview, the way he thought about the Sephardic Jews that need to be repatriated. So here, Menendez Pilal, he in the politics, and Menendez Pilal in culture were acting at the same time. One of those correspondents of Pulido, he came to the Eastern Mediterranean, he toured Sephardic communities, and he continued an epistolary with several of the important, prominent people from the elites of the Jewish community. Moisés Fresco was the headmaster of the Alianza Israelita Universal School in Istanbul in the 1910s. And in a letter, okay, that Pulido in his big book published the letters that the Sephardic Jews sent. So the letters are ethnographic snippets of what the Sephardic Jews themselves considered important and considered worth of keeping. So we see, I'm translating this freely for you, we see a woman con tocado with head cover, sitting next to her window on a sofa, and she has an embroidery frame in her hands, and with her feet, she's rocking a baby, and she's singing, "Dúrmete mi blanca niña," "Go to sleep, my white girl," etc. Oh, this one that is very popular. So we can see ethnography on the making. He's describing how, when, and in what situation a woman is singing this song. Abridme galanica que ya va a amanecer. This is our song. So the song also functions in a way as a lullaby. And you wouldn't expect a song of this content to be a lullaby. I call this reconnecting of Spain with its displaced Sephardic community for the Sephardic Jews like a fourth diaspora. We have the Temple of Jerusalem diaspora. We have the Spanish diaspora. Then we have the expulsion from Spain and its diaspora. And then the fourth diaspora is when the Jews relocate themselves after the end of the Ottoman Empire. So Sephardic Jews who came from Turkey to Jerusalem, for me, these are people who experience in their families 4 diasporas. And this is an iconic picture. When I saw this picture the first time, I said, this picture made my day. I was doubting whether to put the picture in the title of my, on the front page of my book. This is, in the middle, Manuel Menendez, Don Ramon Menendez Pidal, in his visit in Jerusalem in 1964. You remember when he was born? He was 96 in this picture. And he came to Jerusalem. He realized the dream of his life to come to Jerusalem. And he meets 2 of the most important collectors and promoters of Sephardic songs in Jerusalem, Isaac Levy and Moshe Attias, in a cocktail at the Jerusalem municipality. Now, I knew that here in the University of Washington, I am at David Nair's domain, so Salonika is important here, very much important. Let's hear a version now, an ethnographic version from Madame Mari Barzilai, recorded in Israel in 1978. And here you have the text, important text collected by Michael Molcho from Salonika and republished by another very important Spanish scholar, Manuel Alvaro. But let's listen to the music first, to the performance.
Abrí mi galanica que ya va a amanecer, que la noche no duermo pensando en vos. Abrí, dijo Zaldal, mi lindo amor. Mi padre está meldando, mo sentirá. A mátale la luz y vamos a echar. Mi madre está cosiendo, mo sentirá. Ciérrale la burra y vamos a echar. Mi hermano está escribiendo, mos oirá. Guárdale la pinina y vamos a echar. Abrí mi galanica, abrí, dijo ya. Abrí mi galanica, que ya va a amanecer, que la noche no duermo pensando en vos.
Now, in the version recorded by Attias, we have a new stanza. So some people have another stanza. In this stanza, she says, all night, the whole night, I was waiting for you. With the open doors, with candles lighted. And then he says, my dear bride, when are you going to go with me? Kiss her, hug her, and take her for you. So the important issue here is this very tense relationship between lovers and the embedded sexual innuendos that this song has. And this is why usually this song was sung in another important occasion. And this is what Moshe Attias writes about the song. This is one of the better known and most widespread wedding songs that the old women keep until today in their memory, with its text and joyful melody. They told me that in the distant past, the menagnot, the Jewish women singers, used to come at the crack of dawn the day after the wedding, where the couple was sleeping, downstairs, and start with this song. So here, without getting into any details about the customs of wedding among Sephardic Jews in older times, the song had a totally new, different twist. Here we have this very well-known postcard from Salonika with the menagnot. These are the women that sang this song under the window or under the or in the outside the home of the new bride and groom of the new couple, and perform it. And you think they accompany themselves with the frame drums. Another important collector, another important figure. All these for me are like actors acting in the field of creating the song. The great composer, this is a Sephardic Jew from Romania, from Bucharest, who moved to Paris, and he was a very accomplished composer of liturgical music, but also a collector of Sephardic songs. And his book, Chant Sephardi, was one of the earliest printed collection with music notation that from his book, many singers later on started to play on the basis of the printed notation, not of the oral tradition. People never heard a Sephardic Jew singing the song. They only interpreted what is written in the score. So this is how the network of this sonic ruin starts to take its shape. And here you see in the last stanza, Mi madre está enfurnando. This is another version. Okay? My mother is baking. Okay? Usually the mother is just sewing. Okay? But here she's baking. I say, well, take la palita. I don't know how you say that in English. The baking, and perhaps she will go to sleep. Okay? This is for musicology. I won't touch that. Now, the last part of this lecture, surprise. So we are talking about Sephardic song, was extremely popular at the beginning of the 20th century. We know this from Enrique de Lara, who worked for Menendez Pidal, and we know this from Hemsi, and we know this also from Atias. However, the song exists in other cultures that have nothing to do with Sephardic Jews. Here we have a version recorded by my dear friend Pepe Pedrosa in Spain, and this from the Basque country, okay? And I won't go into the details, but basically we have more or less the same structure of the song with the same scene. A man, a young man, I assume, okay, and with a lot of aspirations, some outside the door or the window and begging to enter into the space of the beloved. But what is most amazing is this one. This one is from a very important article on popular Russian songs. Cette chanson sur un air très vif et surtout chantée par les Tziganes, by the Roma people. I cannot say Gypsies today because it's not politically correct. Roma people in the Russian Empire have this song, and I translated this from the French, which is a translation of the Russian. Anastasia, Anastasia, open your door. Accept this poor young man. I would open with pleasure, but my father is not asleep. Almost the same words. Almost the same words. And here is the illustration that comes with this article. But the most amazing is this one, recorded in New York, and I deeply apologize for the Sephardic studies program that I will mention Yiddish. Wer klappt das so spät bei Nacht? Who is making this noise at night? Yankele Shiker. Now the man is a shiker, a drunk person. Rochele, effen mir. Rochele, now she has a name. Open the door. Okay? I am here, your beloved. And here we have an even more complete version. Okay? Was klappt an Nacht so? And here you have the translation of Bronchele, a very famous Yiddish song with many versions. And you see who's knocking so late at night. Yankele Volanschik. Here he has another name. Open up Bronchele. She has another name, okay? It's your sweetheart. How can I open the door for you? I'm afraid of my mother. Open up Bronchele. I won't stay long. So now in the Yiddish version, there is no inconvenientes. There is no excuses. But he's threatening her. In every stanza, he threatens her more and more. If you don't open, I will go. If you don't open, I won't make you any harm. It will be better for you, okay? Don't make a fuss. And if she don't open, I won't come.
Klappt das also spät bei Nacht, Jankele Voljanschik.
Effen, Bronchele, ich bin dein Kokanschick.
Wie kann ich dir denn erfinden, hab meure für mein Mamen.
Effen, Bronchele, ich will
sorry, I cannot play the whole music. There are several versions. We have to start to wrapping up. So what happened to the song when it gets out of control? What happens to the song when it becomes a global phenomenon? This is possible simply because the song starts to be recorded commercially. And here we have one of the seminal albums produced by the amazing company Folkways of Sephardic songs by Gloria Levy. I cannot go into Gloria Levy. You can read a lot in my book about her. But this album generated a global interest because it was accessible. It was a long play in a format that now it was cheap and many people could afford.
Abrimos cada nica que va a amanecer. Abrimos cada nica que va a amanecer. Abrir ya vos abro mi lindo amor. La noche no duermo pensando en vos.
And then, one of the greatest folklorists of Spain to this day, dear friend, Joaquin Diaz, records after a few years the same song. Only when I met Joaquin in Madrid in 1992, and I asked him, where did you learn the song that you're singing? He said, well, there was this record by Gloria Levy. So now we have oral tradition, we have written tradition, and now we have electronic tradition, the tradition that goes from recording to recording. And of course, today we have the digital tradition. That is to say, sound files that go from generation to generation. I'm sorry that the volume is not.
Abrime galanica que ya amanece, abrirme galanica que ya amanece, abrir ya vos abro mi lindo amor, la noche yo no durmo pensando en vos.
YouTube. I searched for the song in YouTube when I wrote the book. This is from 6 years ago. I didn't change the slide. I didn't have the patience to start counting again. Then we have like 70 versions, recorded versions by different artists. And I search under all these keywords because people have different versions of the text. Let me play you from a huge selection of YouTube files that I have, 2 or 3, to end this presentation. Who could imagine that Abrirme Galanica will be performed at a medieval church in Toledo by a Christian choir? In a dance festival in Transylvania, in Romania, of medieval dances. So why they choose Sephardic music? Because Sephardic music is always medieval. Even when Professor Seroussi shows that the song is relatively new, it doesn't help and change anybody. And I'm glad that nobody listens to me. That's very important. got the idea. We have a brisme galanica in the street. We have a brisme galanica in a folklore camp in Germany by an Indian dancer dancing to a brisme galanica. We have a brisme galanica as Celtic music in Spain by a hard rock. Perhaps I will play a few of this one. And the final one, a shopping center in São Paulo, Brazil. People shopping, and the song is there. I hope you agree with me that this is not something to take it for granted. What is the aesthetic appeal of this repertoire? That you find it on a global scale everywhere. Sephardic Jews should be very proud of this contribution to world culture.
Mudou muita coisa, né?
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. So now I invite Ke to play for you a Britmi Galanica and two other songs to finish this program. Please, thank you.
Abrish mi galanica que ya va a amanecer. Abrish mi galanica que ya va a amanecer. Abrindo vos, abro mi lindo amor. La noche ya no durmo pensando en vos. Mi padre está meldando, mozo oyera. Mi padre está meldando, mozo oyera. A matar de la luz de sí, casi se dormirá. A matar de la luz de sí, casi se echará. Mi madre está cosiendo, mozo oyera. Mi madre está cosiendo, mozo oyera. Pedrel de la algugi casi se dormirá. Pedrel de la algugi casi se echará. Mi hermano está escribiendo, mozo oyera. Mi hermano está escribiendo, mozo oyera. Vendré de la pendolica si se dormirá. Vendré de la pendolica si se echará. Mi hermana está labrando, mozo oyera. Mi hermana está labrando, mozo oyera. Vendré de la bastidorico si se dormirá. Vendré de la bastidorico si se echará. Abrish mi calanica que ya va a amanecer. Abrish mi calanica que ya va a amanecer. Abriendo vos hablo mi lindo amor. La noche yo no durmo pensando en vos. Abrish mi calanica que ya va a amanecer. Abrish mi calanica que ya va a amanecer. Abriendo vos hablo mi lindo amor. La noche yo no durmo pensando en vos. So we're going to play two more songs for you. The first one is Morenica, and then we're going to end with Avram Avinu. I'm sure many of you knows how to sing, so we invite you to sing along with us. Morenica, mi me ama, yo blanca nací. Y del sol del verano yo me hice ansí. Morenica, graciosicazos, tú morena y yo gracioso y ojos pretos tú. Morenica, mi me aman los marineros. Si otra vez a mí me aman, me voy yo con ellos. Abashesh morena, si quieres venir, los naves ya están vela y ya va a partir. Morenica, mi me ama, él y yo de rey. Si otra vez a mí me ama, me voy yo con él. si me calana. Si quieres venir, los velos tengo fuertes, no puedo yo venir. Morenica mi me ama, yo blanca nací. We would like to thank very much everyone who's here, Professor Seroussi and UW Sephardic Studies. It's been a great journey here for me, and it's such a great event. Hope you enjoyed the night. Thank you. Cuando el rey Nimrod al campo salía, miraba en el cielo y en la estrella, vida una luz santa en la judería, que había de nacer Abraham Avinu. Abraham Avinu, Padre querido, Padre bendito, luz de Israel. Abraham Avinu, Padre querido, Padre bendito, luz de Israel. Luego a las comadres encomendaba que toda mujer que preñada quedara, si no pariera al punto la matara, que había de nacer Abraham Avinu. Abraham Avinu, Padre querido, Padre bendito, luz de Israel. Abraham Avinu, Padre querido, Padre bendito, luz de Israel. Mujer de tierra quedó peñada y de día en día él le preguntaba: ¿de qué tenés la cara demutada? Ella ya sabía el bien que tenía. Abraham Avinu, Padre querido, Padre bendito, luz de Israel. Abraham Avinu, Padre querido, Padre bendito, luz de Israel. Por fin de 9 meses parir quería, iba caminando por campos y viñas, y su marido tal no lo descubría, topó una meara y lo pariría. Abraham Avinu, Padre querido, Padre bendito, luz de Israel. Abraham Avinu, Padre querido, Padre bendito, luz de Israel. Abraham Avinu, Padre querido, Padre bendito, luz de Israel. Abraham Avinu, Padre querido, Padre bendito, luz de Israel.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ka, and thank you, Reynaldo Ruiz, for being here and for sharing your music with us. And I'm very happy to invite Professor Seroussi and Ka to join us here for Q&A. If you have any questions for either Professor Seroussi or for Ka, please feel free to type it in here in the on the Slido thing here. I'm going to take maybe advantage of the fact that I have the microphone to ask the first question, if I may, which is, how do we know that this song that you are speaking of is originally a Sephardic song?
Did I say that?
No, you didn't, but you implied it, I think. I mean, do you know, like, could it have come into the Sephardic tradition from maybe not Yiddish, but I don't know, where did, do you have a sense of the broader trajectory of at least the lyrics, maybe?
Let me tell you this. First of all, I don't know the answer to the question, and you know that. But definitely what this proves is that in certain ways, the Sephardic heritage is part of the pan-European cultural area that has the same structure and the same idea put into verse that exists in many cultures. Now, the question is, who was first? That doesn't interest me. What interests me is that in the case of this song, because every song is a different story, every song is its own sonic ruin in itself, have a different, fate, different destiny. But in this case, the issue that there is also such a strong Yiddish tradition, in a way, raises the issue of inter-Jewish folkloric interchanges. And to remember that this distance that we make today between Sephardim and Ashkenazim, like two separate entities, it's not historically correct. In the areas that comprise the Western Ottoman Empire, or if you want, Southeastern Europe, there was an entire area where Sephardi Jews and Ashkenazi Jews interacted. Whenever also there was issues or bad political connotations for Jews in Eastern Europe, many Ashkenazi Jews settled, Devin, you know this very well, in Sephardic lands. And they founded, usually the synagogue is called the Ashkenazi synagogue, okay? And when there are many Turkish Jews called Ashkenazi, so we know why they are called Ashkenazi, because 200, 300 years ago, there was a family called, they said, you come from Ashkenaz, you are called Ashkenazi. So the fact that perhaps this was an Yiddish poetical idea that was transformed into a Ladino one, or vice versa, okay, also comes into as part of the question in the case of this song.
Great, thank you. One of the questions relates to each of your personal preferences. Do you have a favorite version, each of you, of Avrish Migalanika? Either a recording or a textual version, or how do you, or a particular one that you like or stands out to you, maybe?
Listen, I have so many, but I have a very special sentiment for Gloria Levy, because this has to do also, again, with personal acquaintances that I had the privilege of know Emily Levy. Emily Levy is the mother of Gloria Levy. Gloria Levy recorded for Folkways because Emily told me when I met her in New York, and she was a lady, I think she was close to 90. She said, I was too old to record. She was 40-something. And I taught this to my daughter. So when you hear Gloria Levy, you're hearing Emily Levy, who came from Turkey through Egypt to America. And once again, all these geographical displacements that are so fascinating. And when you hear Gloria, if you hear very well, you can already hear her American English accent in the Spanish. Okay, a tiny little bit. So here we have one version that encapsulates so much of the processes that interested me. okay? But don't ask me this question again, because I like them all. They're all my children. I say, what child do you like the most, you know?
How do you respond to that question?
I have to be a little selfish and say I like our version. Because when we were arranging the song, we considered many recordings. I took the lyrics from Hazan Isaac Azul's CD, Ladino Reflection. Thank you very much. And then Reynaldo, I told him that please come up with a mid-section. And he said, I've never played Sephardic music. And I said, just your style. And I love what he did. And he said it's kind of like Andean style. But I like it. I like it a lot. So I like our version.
I like it too.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Yeah, somebody says here, Anjali says that they sang Avraham Avinu in the market, and a Mexican patron came to them and said, it's a Christmas song in Mexico. I don't know if that's true, but I guess it has many different formations. And this maybe leads to another song, another question, which the questioner asks about concerns that some musicians may have about the question of cultural appropriation. And this person says it sounds like the concept of cultural appropriation has been disproven this evening. Could you comment on the concept of cultural appropriation and what the story you've told and the music you've performed says about that?
Okay. I will answer the question.
Oh, okay. Oh, you will answer this one. Okay.
I will, and I will be careful with what I'm saying. Imagine that the idea of cultural appropriation existed in the past. We wouldn't have anything. Anything of this interchange, interactions, taking from each other, reviving each other, revitalizing each other. I can understand some political connotations when, for example, profit is involved with cultural appropriation, or exploitation of some other person's cultural assets. But in this case, there is no cultural appropriation. It's just a shared heritage of so many people through so many ages, through so many places, that we better leave that concept to the confines of academic circles and our own judgment of what is an ethical way of conducting yourself.
I don't know, Kat, do you want to comment on that? Or
It is a very difficult question. I thought about that a lot, and especially as a non-Sephardic Jewish, I don't feel like I have the license to perform in many occasions. But I find a very interesting phenomenon doing my interviews with many Sephardic musicians and non-Sephardic musicians, that non-Sephardic related musician, I mean, they don't have the heritage. They tend to be closer to the versions that they heard in our archival recordings. And they feel that they don't have the artistic license. They want to keep it close to what they heard before. Whereas people who have Sephardic origins, they're more daring to change.
That's very interesting, yeah. And I agree with you. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
another question relates to the relationship between the lyrics, the vocal tradition, and the musical tradition. So it sounds like here in the song that you were sharing with us, we had a lot more around the words. So the question is about, were these originally just vocal songs without music maybe, or without instruments? So the question relates to, do we have a sense of when instruments may have been added to these songs and what kind of instruments and in what context? Like, I don't know, the Ottoman Empire, for example, in the 19th century, like we saw the picture of the women and the tambourine, I guess, but can you comment maybe more on the instrumental accompaniment?
Yeah, well, that's of course, it's an important question. A folk song is a song performed. It may be performed without any instrumental accompaniment, and it may be even recited. Okay, some songs are just recited like a folk tale. Okay, however, from my experience, when we interview so many people, sometimes they recited the verses just as an aide-de-memoire to remember, and then they sang it. So the sung performance is the natural venue for conveying these songs. That's point number one. Point number two, in the realm of Sephardic women, besides the pandero, okay, usually the performances are a cappella. The ladies are used to sing alone or in groups without any substantial accompaniment. The Menagnot in Saloniki are certain groups of performers that, how should we put it, they weren't professional in the sense that we use that word today, but they became very well-known figures that were systematically invited as performers to a wedding, even if it's not of their family. Then we have, as we saw in the picture, perhaps even a man with a violin. That's what you see in the, okay, with a modern violin, basically, not a Turkish violin, but a modern violin included in that. Many, by the way, also men, Sephardic men, sing this folk song. This is another issue that we have to deconstruct a little bit, okay? This gender separation, women's songs and men's songs. Men only sing in the synagogue, religious songs, women sing only in Ladino. We have many good interpreters of Ladino songs. And the fact is that when the music industry comes to the Ottoman Empire, 1906, 7, you can hear that online in the website of the Jewish Music Research Center, our last collection of Sephardic songs recorded between 1907 and 1912. There are mostly, the vast majority are male performers performing what today is called women's song. Mostly because it wouldn't be something decent for a lady, Sephardic lady, to go to a studio to make a recording. And because also most of the men knew the songs too, particularly the professional performers like Chaim Effendi, for example. So, but when he plays, he's accompanied by Ottoman instrumentalists, kanun, oud, that is to say, the instruments that a professional singer will be accompanied in a cafe, for example. And that's the old story. The new story is that people are accompanied by any instruments they want. It can be a acoustic guitar, of course, because of its association with Spain. So many Sephardic singers accompany themselves with guitar. But I have heard Sephardic songs accompanied by saxophones and by all sorts of instruments. So.
Fantastic. Okay, we have time for one final question here. Somebody comments that they grew up listening to Yoram Gaon and his Ladino recordings. And I guess maybe this is a question for both of you. Are there any contemporary musicians who you feel are carrying the torch of Sephardic music? And maybe this goes back to your authenticity comment, but I don't know. I'm curious how you would describe who's carrying on other than Ka. I mean, I should add, we do have, in addition to Ka, we do have at least two people here who have recorded Ladino albums. Rabbi Frank Varon and also Chazani Zak Azuz. And I think, once again, Seattle has a disproportionate number of people involved in the world of Sephardic culture. I was wondering if maybe how would you comment on it? In the commercial, I guess, it sounds like that's the question.
The recording by Yoram Gaon of 1968 is another pivotal moment, also in my book, okay? I won't go into the story. You can read the book about the amazing journey of Cuando el Rey Nimrod Abraham Avinu, which is fascinating, okay? But the role of Yoram Gaon in making that song that you all sang right now, known in that specific version that we sing today, it's crucial. Now, today there are many young singers in Israel. I wouldn't like to name names because I don't want to leave. Some of them are very good friends, and some of them are my students. But there is an entire generation, and from my point of view, Kay is also part of a group of young people dedicated to the Sephardic song. Whether they are Jews, whether they are Sephardic Jews, whether they are non-Jews, all around the world. We have a Japanese student in Jerusalem. She's a fantastic performer, and she started to perform Ladino songs in Tokyo before she came to Jerusalem. So that's how I can picture that the future of Sephardic song is quite secure, regardless of Sephardic people.
So we may disappear.
But the Sephardic Studies program here has the responsibility to keep this torch light.
On that note, I think we'll have to conclude.
Thank you.
Final thanks to Professor Seroussi, to Ka, Reynaldo. Thank you very much. Once again, many thanks to the supporters of the Hazan Itzhak Azuz program and to Hazan Azuz. Thank you all very much for being here. And with this, I like to wish you Noche Buena.